Working through Chapter 7, let's figure out how to put it all together. Moving back to your NFLA guidelines, performance standards, we are going to work on describing how to change one's base moves by changing the surface area, so that would be the hand shape, lever length, and body orientation, as well as speed, range of motion, movement plane, and travel. We are going to be considering the importance of effective transition between movements, discuss how to link movements together, practice a variety of methods of sequencing, and learn how to layer base moves to create an entire pattern. Learning how to transition people from one movement to a next in any kind of fitness class can be challenging. The only way to really know for sure if your transitions are effective is to practice them yourself and be able to tear them apart after and determine which were the parts that didn't go the best and how can we change that for next time. Good transitions in a class make the class flow smoothly and reduce injury. So an example of a good transition would be from a ski to a jog, from a jog to a ski, especially in a stationary position. An example of a bad transition might be a jog on the spot to a side step going sideways. So instead of having them move in the same plane of motion, you could have them jogging forward, then turn to a sideways step. In this case, would allow for a good transition between those two activities. Effective transitions make it easier for participants to follow you. What happens when you give cues that are not clear, or it seems like this is not an activity that should follow the last activity, usually what happens is everyone in your class will stop and look at you for a little bit more guidance. Good transitions make participants feel confident, successful, and also allow you to keep them on track so they're not stopping to look around to see what other people are doing to see if they're doing it correctly. With movements lasting anywhere from 30 seconds to 1 minute, you're going to have a lot of opportunity for transitions in your class. We want to make sure that you have those transitions planned out in advance to make them as seamless as possible. Page 104 in your textbook has some guidelines and some tips for helping you create easier transitions. But let's go through the list now. Change one element at a time. If you were having people go from a skiing on the spot to a jogging with arms coming up in a lateral raise out to the sides, you want to make sure that you change one element at a time. So you can change the movement so that the ski is moving in the same direction that you wanted the jog to move. Then change the legs into jogging legs, then change the arms. What happens is if you change too many things at once, everyone in your class will probably stop and look at you for more guidance. It's easier just to give them the information up front. We want to make sure we have a transition that starts at the end of a move and transitions people seamlessly to the next move. Arm and leg movements should complement each other. When people get into aquatic fitness, they look at the base moves and say, well, I wonder if we could change the arms to this or that. Really need to get in the water and try those movements together and see if they are a good combination. Just because they feel okay on land does not mean that they'll feel okay in the water, and doesn't mean that it'll be easy for your participants to manage. Take time to slow down before you move through a transition. So if you are having them work in an interval situation, so you have them working at an 80% effort, and then you want to have them do jumping jacks, you might want to have them slow down to a 50% effort in the jog before moving into a jumping jack movement. Keep it simple. Lots of times, again, we look and we see things and we think, wow, we could really change this up. We can make it new and exciting. But sometimes keeping it simple works the best, at least until you have a good handle on your participants, what they're used to, and how the transitions can move. Weight transfer is also a great way to think about transitions. So you can have them transferring from side to side, from front to back, but planning that out so that you can give the appropriate cues so there can be a smooth transition from move to move. Other ways to add more variety to your classes include changing the lever length. The lever can be short, medium, or long. Take some time and play around with the leg movements and the arm movements, as well as the speed, so that you can determine if these activities are appropriate for moving into higher levels of intensity. Directional planes. Going back to exercise theory, you want to make sure that you include movements that are in the sagittal, frontal, and transverse planes. You want to challenge coordination when you have the legs working in one plane while the arms are working in another. But again, you want to cue these and have them start with one part of the body, then move to the other part of the body. Directions for movement in a class can include forwards. So if we take the jog, for instance, forward jog, backwards jog, diagonal jog, lateral jog, zigzag jog, circle, even figures of 8. These are some basic movement patterns that you can use when you are planning out which way people are going to move in the class. Just make sure that you have everyone moving in the same direction, or you will end up with certain chaos. Impact levels include anchored, light bounce, rebound, submerged, and suspended. We want to avoid jumping jacks traveling forward due to the strain on the knee joint and potential hyperextension of the lower jack as we are trying to get them to propel themselves forward. Jacks are best traveled backwards or laterally. Transitions can also be looked at as bridging activities. If two moves do not link together easily on their own, you can add a bridge, one or a few movements to allow for a smoother transition from one to the next. Here pictured we have a picture of someone doing a cross-country ski and then a tuck. You can have them do a wide tuck or narrow tuck. On page 7 or 107 in your textbook, there's additional information. What about if you were going to move from a pendulum to a rocking horse? What does this transition look like? Are there some moves that you could put in the middle to help create a more smooth and seamless transition? Some people choose to use choreography options when they're working in the pool. There's definitely a lot of options that you can use to help your participants either anticipate what the next moves are or to help them learn combinations of exercises. The first way we're going to talk about is called free flow. Free flow is changing from one exercise to the next without any predetermined pattern. Seems great, but it can be very hard for most instructors to get a class flowing smoothly. Participants cannot guess what's happening next, so many times it takes a couple moves for them to follow along with you. So if you were doing something where you had 2 moves and then you were moving on and doing 2 moves of something else, that's not enough time for them to be able to catch on and be able to get in the movement and working it before they can move on to the next option. Combinations, repeating a pattern of movements. This is something that I use fairly often. I will have them do, one of my favorite ones is to do I call it the Crazy 8 countdown class. So you'd have them do 8 skis, then you'd have them do 8 tucks, then you'd have them do 8 of something else, and you can add on as many of these as you want, and then you can change it up. So at least they know what the activity is that it's coming next, and they can kind of anticipate that. Add-on method. Teach exercise A, repeat it, then add exercise B, then do A, then B, then do A, then B, then C. Add up to 5 to 6 moves. Remember that this makes it harder to remember. Also, some people will be anticipating the movement and some people won't. Remember that working in the pool is much harder to stay on beat. So if you are doing any kind of choreography, make sure that you've tried it out in water and understanding that some people will take a little bit longer to catch on to combinations, especially when they're in the water. What about connecting link method? In this method, you teach A and B blocks, and then you repeat it lots. Then you teach C and D and repeat it lots, and then you link them together. There's also the layering method, where you add something to the original choreography to make it different. You could change the arms, but keep the leg pattern the same. Pyramid method, a process of repeating patterns that reduces in number: 16 front kicks, 16 back kicks, 8 front kicks, 8 back kicks, 4 front kicks, 4 back kicks, that sort of thing. Other options we have: high intensity versus low intensity, directional versus stationary. So again, you could have them do choreography where they're turning. In a shallow water class, you could have them do essentially you could have them do a step touch, 3 or 4 of those. If you had room for them to turn and go the other way, that would be fantastic. But again, notice that some people will have a harder time with this, and lots of turns can be hard on the knees and ankles. You can have choreography that's specifically developed for a chorus in a song. You can also do something like a themed choreography. You can do a line dance step or a YMCA arms. Lots of different options to keep it creative and keep it fun for your participants. On page 116 of your manual, there's a movement design practice. What I encourage you to do is I encourage you to look at each one of these activities and go through the different options so that you can determine what are some ways that you can change this particular movement. Let's start off with the jog. Start off with the lever options. So we can have the jog be with high knees. That would be a short lever. You could take it into a front kick jog, which would be a longer lever. Movement planes. You could have people jog side to side. You could have people jog forward and back. Lots of different options for that. Directional movements, again, you could have them traveling from side to side, front to back. You can look at impact levels. One of the things that I do sometimes is I'll have people actually even leave their toes on the bottom of the pool and just lift up their heels and have them jog as fast as they can without lifting their toes off the bottom of the pool. Rhythm options. You can choose any kind of beat of music that you want, that you think that your participants can keep up with, and have them try and jog to the beat of the music. Take some time, look at your book, and complete this chart. It'll help you in the long run by helping you to create a toolbox of activities and some worthwhile changes that you can make to them on the fly or when planning your classes so that you have lots of different options for cardiovascular exercises. The chart in your textbook on page 118 is similar. It is going to have you work through some more changes that you can make to these same activities. So again, looking at the jog, looking at the range of motion. So you can have the knees coming all the way up. You can make it a small jog. There's one you can make a football jog. You can bring those knees nice and high with wide feet. Symmetrical, asymmetrical. One of the things that I've done in the past is do an asymmetrical jog where you keep one foot down on the bottom of the pool and one leg is jogging really fast. Then you can change it over and do it on the other side. High, low impact options for the jog. You can have them move down to a march if they feel that the jog is just a little bit too much for them. You can have them rebounding off the bottom of the pool if impact is okay. Stationary versus traveling. Traveling through the water can be more difficult, but at the same point, you can get them moving faster lots of times if you have them staying stationary because of the number of people who are in the pool. Also, sometimes the shallow end or the deep end is just not long enough for them to be able to get a good kind of jog across the pool. So it may be better to keep them in place sometimes to get that heart rate up a little bit higher. Tempo variations. You can have it small and big. You can have it short and fast. There are so many different ways to play with these activities that will help you create some options for your classes. In Manitoba, we have a large group of instructors that we've had for a long time. Why do they come back? Why do they spend so much time working with people in group exercise? I have to tell you, it's magic. In order to be able to be on side with your members, in order to be able to motivate them, you're going to have to connect with them. You want to make sure that you are being expressive in a way that suits you. Be genuine. Try not to do something that you don't feel comfortable doing. Try to be yourself, but also try to find ways to laugh and bring excitement to your classes. You can use creative visualization. So if you have, for some reason, at the end of a class, you have a warm pool and you have people kind of swimming around, you could talk about, pretending that they're on vacation. You could talk about, teaching them some fun stuff that they could use with their grandkids or with their kids when they're on vacation or on holidays. Use facial expressions and body language to convey your energy. Nothing worse than coming to a fitness class where the leader is monotone, stands at the front, and just basically instructs the class on what to do. You are their cheerleader. You are there to cheer them on, to get them moving, to give them the opportunity to work hard, but you need to be excited about it too. Make sure you use your hips and shoulders to add style. So again, it's all about you. It's all about the way that you move. Don't try and be something you're not, but at the same point, try and have exaggerated movements so that they can really see what you're trying to get out of them. Breathe with the music. It's a great way for you to encourage them to move a little bit faster and a little bit harder, using the tempo of the music to help them figure out when to breathe. Do something new. I try new things all the time. One of the pools that I teach in, I have used they have these rings, they're green and red, and I'll use them for the Tabata drill, and I will hold them up like a stop sign or like a green light. We have done pair activities. We use some time at the end for socialization, where we try and get the people in the class to integrate and become friends so that they feel like a family, so that they come back again and again and again. You can try games, circuits, relays. One time we used some rubber ducks. They were at the pool already, so we put them in the pool. We put people into pairs, and then we had them try and push these rubber ducks across the pool using only their arms, but just the waves from the movement that they were doing. They had so much fun. We haven't done it since, because we kind of try to do different things, but I'm telling you, they still talk about it to this day. What about theme days? So if it is Valentine's Day or Halloween, there's great times to have theme days. Now, dressing up in the pool is not going to be very helpful. It's something that's pretty hard to do. Pools frown upon you taking any kind of sparkles or anything like that into the pool. So you have to be, as the instructor, the way that is communicating that theme to your participants. It's important to understand why a lesson plan is important. It helps you to determine the answer to these 4 questions. Who am I teaching? Am I teaching prenatal moms that are getting ready for the delivery of their babies? Am I teaching older adults who want to work on their cardiovascular endurance and their muscular strength? Am I teaching a general class where I have all kinds of levels of participants and fitness levels in them? What am I teaching? Am I teaching a light aqua class where people are coming to stretch in a nice warm pool? Am I teaching a cardiovascular class that is aimed at increasing the intensity for competitive athletes? How will I teach it? Some people teach from inside the pool. This can be a real challenge when the pool is very large and people can't see you. But you can also teach from the deck where people can see you. You can also move yourself in and out of the water. I've seen people do that, and it works. It's about understanding what your pool has to offer and how you will teach at your own pool. How will I know if the students understand me? They're going to ask you questions before class, after class, if there's something that they're not comprehending. You're going to see them not doing the things that you're asking them to do if they're not understanding you. It's your job to be able to give them the right cues to be able to get them in and out of the exercise and allow them to flourish and work as hard as they possibly can, or as hard as they want to, within each one of your classes.